I actually really like washing trucks, washing cars. It was actually my second job in high school. First I was a dishwasher, and then I washed cars for the local funeral home. So I got into all that good stuff, and I would have to wash the limos a few times a week so that they were ready for any funerals that came through. But so before I had this truck, I actually had a Ford Ranger. It was a 2-wheel drive. Worked awesome for what it was. It was the little 4-cylinder 5-speed. I had that in high school. That was my awesome little truck for getting around, going to parties, all that good stuff. And then I had that through college, where I never really used it too much, honestly. I just used it to get home for vacations every once in a while and go to the grocery store once a week. But other than that, it just sat. That was my Ranger, and it was awesome. And actually, when I was done with that, when I got this truck, which is what I got after, my parents, they technically owned the Ranger because they bought it for me because I'm a privileged fella. They gave it to my brother-in-law. And so my brother-in-law actually drove that truck for a couple of years while he was in high school. And then he crashed it. He got hit. And it was the end of that truck. So I got this Tacoma in 2011, right after I had finished college. I was living in upstate New York, and I was going to go get a job down in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, live in Knoxville, Tennessee. And for that, my parents were super proud that I got a job at a government lab and wanted me to have a good, reliable vehicle. So they put a massive down payment on this truck for me. Again, I'm a privileged guy. And then I had a payment after that. But that's when we bought this 4-cylinder, 2.7 liter Toyota Tacoma. So we got it in 2011 into 2009, so it was 2 years old. It had about 20,000 miles, just shy of 20,000 miles. And I immediately jumped in it after college and drove it down to Tennessee. Picked out a house to live in with my brother. He came for me on the road trip. And then we drove it actually out here to Colorado to visit my then girlfriend, now wife, since she was out here, because this is where she's from. So in about 2 weeks of owning this, I think I put about 5,000 miles on her, and she did great. She's the 5-speed again. I like manual cars. No issues whatsoever. We did get a flat tire on that trip, I remember, but it was not a big deal at all. So then, turn this thing around. So then from 2011 to 2000, oh no. Ooh, dirty up here from all the truck camper runoff. But so then, from 2011, to 2013, this truck was my daily driver and commuter. Like I said, I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I commuted to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I think when I was doing that, it's about an hour each way in the car, think I did about 400 miles a week. A little over a tank of gas a week, I think. So, put some miles on it for sure. She did great. I think without the cap, with me driving slow like I do, I think I got like 22 miles to the gallon pretty often. So I thought that was, it's not awesome, but certainly isn't the worst. Then the end of, or sometime in 2013, that's when I actually bought my first cap for the camper. I got an old aluminum style cap, actually. I got that from a truck accessory store in Nashville, Tennessee. That was going out of business. Got that cap for $100 plus tax, which was pretty ideal for me. It was a great deal. I don't know what that cap would go for new, but I'm sure it was more than that. Everyone thought it looked like a grandpa cap, but I thought it worked really well. So I actually had that until I got my four-wheel camper in 2015 or 2016. And when I sold that cap, I sold it out here in Colorado, where Tacomas are super popular, and caps on Tacomas are even more popular. And I was actually able to sell it for $400. So I used it for a few years, and then sold it for way more than I bought it for. I like doing stuff like that. So once I moved to Colorado in 2013, I didn't really drive the truck much anymore. I live in Boulder, which is a very bikeable city, and I really like bikes. So I bike commute to school every day, to my job at the university. So this thing just sat most of the time, and I think my yearly mileage dropped way below, well below 10,000 a year. I would pretty much just use it to go up into the mountains, to go skiing, maybe go get groceries and stuff like that. So mileage got real low. And that's when I really got into cars a bit more. Started taking care of everything on my own. Started changing my own oil just to save money, but also learn what I'm doing. So I really enjoy doing that. I have meticulous notes on this. What type of oil, when those are done, when the tires are rotated, when the brakes are done. Actually, I've never done the brakes because I drive so slow I don't have to use them very often. So from 2013 to now, the truck really, although it's my only vehicle, it's really been much more of a recreation vehicle than anything else. And then in 2015, that's when I got the four-wheel camper for it. And that's for my old four-wheel camper. I have an old Fleet model, as you probably know. And that didn't fit perfectly. I had to modify the camper just a little bit. I had to raise it up about 1.5 inches, which I did. And also at that time, when I first got the camper in 2015, I think it was, that is when I put airbags in the back and 1-inch risers. So below the leaf springs is an extra inch, maybe 1.25 inches, I don't remember, of chunk of metal that helps keep the leaf springs up a little bit. And then to really help with the weight, which was much more important, I put in some Firestone Ride Right airbags. And those have been pretty phenomenal since I got them. I went with the airbags instead of upgrading the suspension altogether because I thought I would take the camper off the truck a lot more than I did, and then I'd be able to adjust the ride if I had the big heavy camper on it or if I didn't. Turns out I never really took the camper off, but the airbags still worked really well. I do not have the day cradles, but that's alright. I don't go flexing on the trails very often. So the 4-cylinder Tacoma handled the weight of the camper pretty dang well, to tell you the truth. When the camper was a shell, just an empty shell, the 4-cylinder was just fine, like totally fine. Didn't even really notice it. You do notice the visibility is reduced, but it was totally fine. Once I built out the camper a little bit more, got the cabinetry in there, I started to notice it a little bit more. And most specifically, if I've got the water tank filled up with 10 gallons or whatever it is, then I really do notice the camper and the 4-cylinder starts to lag a little bit. Nothing too serious. but just a little bit. So, since I built out the camper, I have been thinking about a new truck a little bit. I don't quite have a lot of money or anything like that, but once the kid came, it became very apparent that if we wanted to go camping, we'd need to bring the kid. And just car seats, plain and simple, do not fit in this vehicle. You cannot put one in the little access cab back here. Now that access cab, it's not completely useless. Some people say it's absolutely useless. No adults ever fit back there. I have put adults back there. I've gone back there with my siblings. I've sat back there plenty, so it's definitely not ideal. But if you're not super particular, it's not too bad. And we've gone on long road trips. I've been back there for hours on end. And it's not ideal, but you make it work. And the gas mileage isn't too bad on the truck. So for 4 people and a boatload of gear, it's a pretty awesome vehicle. Super capable off-road. The low gear is awesome. Off-road, it absolutely crawls over pretty much anything that I'm going to do. Definitely not anything that exists out here in Colorado or the West, but I'm not too hardcore of an off-roader. More soap. One thing I will say is absolutely, once the camper was on it and fully loaded, it was a slower going ride. Going up I-70 and stuff, you'd have to drop to third sometimes and really rub the engine and all that good stuff. And when I did that trip to Montana, I measured my gas mileage, and I would do about 18 miles per gallon. And I said this would get 22 back in the day. I think actually when I had the cap on it, I'd get like 26. I drive really conservatively. But then when my wife drove this, I think we went down to like 12 or something like that for a 4-cylinder. And that's because we were doing like, 75, 80 on the highway with the camper fully loaded. So that's when I got even more serious of, if I'm going to get big truck gas mileage, I might as well have big truck power. Because this thing didn't have power, that's for sure. So with all that, with the baby coming, with the car seat not fitting, I knew it was time to get a lot more serious about the truck. I wanted one to keep the camper. I thought about just selling the whole rig. If someone had offered me a price I couldn't refuse, I definitely would have done it and just built out another rig or something like that. But I started talking to my father-in-law. He got a lot more serious about buying this, and he came and test drove it. Just noticed I'm missing my Toyota things. I wonder if I'm missing them on all of them. Two out of 3. Two out of 4. So my father-in-law came and test drove this. 2 weekends ago. Absolutely loved it. And just said, pretty much, whatever your price, whatever's fair in the Front Range, he was ready to give me. And I wish I was in a financial situation where I could give him a stellar deal. But I'm not. So I gave him a fair deal. So with the money that he bought this for, I started looking for a new Tundra because I figured that's the perfect truck for the family. I would love a 4-door long bed Tacoma, but those are incredibly rare, and especially in the Front Range of Colorado. I saw one with less miles than, or more miles than mine, 4-door. They always are V6, and it was like, I don't even know, $1,600 or $16,000 or something for the same year as mine, more miles. Just outrageous stuff. So I just couldn't find a 4-door Tacoma with the long bed that still fit the camper that would work. And so I got more serious about the Tundras, and I started looking around, and I figured I wouldn't be able to afford a new Tundra, and those wouldn't fit my camper very well anyways. So I looked around a lot for a 2005, 2006 double cab Tundra. And I think those are the best years for this Tundra. They come in the 4.7 V8s that are apparently indestructible. That's what I'm hoping for. I saw some with 300,000 miles on them that are still selling for like $5,000, $8,000, stuff like that. So I was shopping for a Tundra. They hold their value really well, again, especially in the Front Range. But after a little bit of going back and forth, last weekend I went and checked out one in South Denver. It's a 2005 Limited, which means it's got all the bells and whistles, such as leather seats, nice JBL stereo, power everything, including the sunroof. So I would actually prefer not to have power everything, no sunroof, because I just feel like that's stuff that can break. But when you're looking for a used car, beggars can't be choosers. And we went and checked it out. The guy was definitely a bit of a motorhead too, like me. Not extreme, but just he liked to take things clean, keep things clean. He had done the important maintenance of the timing belt and the water pump pretty much at their prescribed intervals. So we pulled the trigger. I called him the next day. He had some people come and look at it again, and I said, we went back and forth on the price a little bit. He wasn't willing to move much because he had other people come and look at it, and he figured he'd get what he wanted. But he did come down a little bit for me, just because I always got to get something off, because I find that fun. And then on Thursday this past week, I went up and met him at his credit union, paid off the lien, and I own the truck outright, pretty much, with just the money from my camper, or excuse me, the sale of this Tacoma. So I've taken a 2004 Tacoma 4-cylinder access cab and turned it into a 2005 Tundra with a much bigger engine. It's going to power the camper wherever we need to go. Seats for my family, and a few more miles. It's got 150,000 miles. So I don't love that it's a little higher mileage, but I am banking on it going for a very, very long time. Oh, I love a shiny, freshly washed car. Clean off my garage door. This is crucial. That's what I learned washing cars at the funeral home. You can't just wash them, you gotta dry them. The way you dry them is so important for it to stay clean. But, so I might not have mentioned before, this truck only has 100,000 miles on it, which is kind of low for the year. For a 10-year-old car, 100,000 miles. So that's why it has a good value. It has, I think I might not have paperwork on a small maybe a couple of oil changes total. But I got paperwork on all the maintenance. I've kept up with all the recalls. Had the new leaf springs put in just this past year. So those are pretty fresh. Plus with the airbags and now no camper. I'm sure the suspension will actually be quite competent. I always thought I would keep this truck forever. I figured I could get it up into the hundreds of thousands, 200, 300, stuff like that. But I also always knew I was going to have a family, and I figured I could find a car seat that fit. But once I started looking, I discovered there was no such thing. So that's why she had to go. But I'm very excited that it's going. My father-in-law, he's extremely excited about it. It's gonna live up in the mountains of Colorado, so that's cool. I think it's pretty much the perfect mountain truck. I wonder if that cap would fit this truck. That would be crazy. What else about the truck? There was a period of time when I hardly drove it at all, when I traveled the world. In 2013, so they pretty much sat for 8 months. I think my brother borrowed it a few times, but nothing serious. I've never even done brakes on it, again, because it's a manual, so you do a lot of engine braking, and I coast to stoplights and stuff like that. I'm pretty much the least aggressive driver out there. Maybe it'll change with my new V8. It's pretty fun to hit the old gas on that bad boy. Especially it's got the TRD. It's got the TRD exhaust, so that's pretty cool. I don't know if this video will be any good. I was originally going to show you the detailing inside the car too. I do a very good job with that as well. But I feel like we've probably talked about the camper and the truck enough. So with that, it is time to say goodbye to the old 4-cylinder Tacoma. She's been a beautiful beast. My wife and I had a lot of adventures on this when we were engaged, when we were just dating, and now that we're married. She's hauled the camper really well. I'll miss this truck so much, but I'm excited for the new truck too. As always, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about this kind of longer format. This is kind of different for sure. And if not, we'll go back to the other stuff soon. So go subscribe. There's my new truck. You can see it over there. I'll talk about that more later, and we'll see you in the next one.